Hey grade 11s, it's Mr. Martins coming back at you for our last time online together for this year. Yes, you heard me right. It is now June and we are into ISU season, which is what you're looking at on your screen right now. So we are done learning for the year and well, almost. And really, all we have left to do, guys, is the ISU. Okay, so you're going to have like not 1 but 2 weeks to finish this. There is no final exam, so do a good job on this, guys, and it will really help make a difference on your overall mark. So what we're looking at here, guys, is a trivia game. All right, so this is a mock trivia game that I did with 5 Pokemon trivia questions. Okay, but your job is to create a P-applet that's a trivia game. All right, now the only thing that's new that we're going to cover that we haven't seen yet before are these radio buttons. Okay, we've worked with check boxes before, or check buttons, when we were keeping dice and throwing away dice for the 4 of a kind game. So these work very similar. The only difference is you can only choose one of these versus check buttons where you can choose multiple, right? So you can click on many dice to keep in the dice game, whereas in this you can only pick one answer from the 4. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do those. They're not hard to do. But basically your job, guys, is to create a trivia game of minimum 15 multiple choice questions on any topic that you like. All right, so I gave some examples: sports, games, movies, TV, music, cars, whatever you want to. But follow a theme. Don't make it like a general trivia. Like, make it specific about something, that's related. Like for my example, Pokemon. Except don't do Pokemon because that's the example that we're doing as a class. So you're going to have an intro screen like you see here. Pokemon trivia. Click to begin. You're going to have 15 questions. You're going to use like a 2D array, guys, to list a bunch of questions, and then within each question there'll be parts like A, B, C, D, and the answer. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do all the stuff. We're going to make use of radio buttons, which I mentioned already. When you get the wrong answer, like I did over here when I said that it's Jigglypuff when it's clearly Bulbasaur. I mean, I knew that. I was just doing that on purpose to show you what it looks like when you get a wrong answer. All right, and it's keeping track of your score, how many right, how many wrong. All right, so as soon as I hit OK on the screenshot, this would have gone up to 1. So it keeps track of your right and wrong answers. And once all the questions are done, the game's going to end automatically. All right, so that's basically your ISU. Now, I've got you covered, guys, because we're going to do, like, you don't have to do the Pokemon one with me, but I'm going to have a series of videos, starting with this one, where we're going to complete this mock ISU together, okay? And when we're done, your job really is to just go out and get your own 15 questions. This is only 5 questions, by the way, my mini ISU. So you'll have more questions and obviously different images, and you may want to change things around a bit in terms of color and design, and maybe add, I didn't add like an ending screen, so if you feel like putting that in for some modus marks, or whatever extra things you want to put in it are up to you. But just as far as the basic workings of the game, follow me on my journey through this together over the next 4 videos, and we'll get this working. And then from that you can basically modify it and expand on it to make your own ISU. Alright, so let's get started. Are there any questions? No, just kidding. You can't put your hand up right now anyway. Let me get out of full screen here. So I've already started, guys, with a blank template. Oh, that reminds me. So also, because we're using G option buttons, I had to give like a separate template that's called the with G option buttons added. Okay, so I added some extra sort of code that I'm giving you to start with so that we can get the G option buttons to work. So I essentially copied all of this code into a new class, all right, and it's called ISU1. Now, I've got it done through different stages, so I'm going to call mine ISU1 and then 2 and then 3, but you can just call yours ISU if you want to, okay, so whatever you want to call it, but you're going to work with the same file all the time. Alright, so here's my opening template. The things that have been added to this all have to do with radio buttons. Okay, so there's 2 extra methods in here that I'm just going to quickly call your attention to. One is called hit option. Okay, so it works very much like hit button, but rather than looking for hitting a button, we're looking for hitting a G option, which is one of those round guys, right? So we can answer a multiple choice. But basically, it does similar things to hit button. So you don't want to erase any of this code, just like you never want to erase this code either. In addition to that, you guys are familiar with the make label method I've created to make labels easier. I've also got one now for make options that we're going to use, where you send in the X, Y, and the text of your option, and it does all this work for you and returns a new option. Alright, so those are the 2 new things in this template that we didn't see before. Alright, so let's get started, guys. Let's go to the very top here, and in this first video we're just going to design a mock screen, get it to appear on the screen for design purposes. Nothing's going to work yet. We just want to place items, create the items for the screen, and then we'll call it a video, okay? So starting at the top here, and I've already written this. I'm just basically revealing the code to you a little bit at a time and explaining it. So feel free to pause the video as we go through and take your time. Alright, so at the very top here, I'm going to need, obviously, my next button to go to the next question, right? And you can see that, maybe if I can I don't know if I can split screen this or not. I can try, but see this little, I know it's small, but this little green next button here, okay, that's what that is. Okay, so I'm going to try to like correlate the controls with what you see on the screen there. Alright, so what else do we need? Well, we're going to need, and I decided to make an array of these guys, an array of 4 G options. Okay, so again, the G options are these 4 things here with the dots beside them where you can only pick one of them. Alright, now, out of the box, it doesn't work that way. So the other thing we have to add to our p-applet is this thing here. It's called a toggle group, okay, a G toggle group. Okay, and basically what this thing does is it groups these 4 things together so they know that they're part of like one decision, right? So that means that if I put all 4 of these into this group, then only one of that in the group can be selected. Okay, without this group, and this isn't something you actually see on your screen, this is sort of an invisible control, but it controls this so that you can only see one of these at a time, and you'll see how we add them to this group later on. Right, that's the only weird thing about options, is this extra group thing you need. With check buttons, we don't need those because you can check on as many of those as you want to. Alright, so what else do we need? Well, we need 5 images. Why 5? Because I've got 5 questions, right? So you're going to have more than 5 in your final version, but I've got 5 Pokemon, which, by the way, I'll get you to make sure that you download those. I'll show you where those are in the next video. Actually, I'll show you in this video. And make sure that you put them in this project as well, okay? In fact, actually, at the time of this recording, guys, I don't even think I've got that part in yet for week 9. I'm a little ahead of myself here, but by the time you guys go to watch this, look for a download here. It's going to be the 5 Pokemon images that you can download and put into your project, and then you can use them, right off the bat. And so you get those after so that you can get those to work. I've already got them in my project here. Alright, I'm also going to create a list, guys, of the file names of these images. Alright, so this is going to be another array. Okay, now this one we can initialize it right away, and we've seen this before, right? So we have like Charmander, Jigglypuff, Bulbasaur, Pikachu, and Squirtle. These are the GIF images that I'm going to get you to download and put into your project. Okay, so essentially, just to be sure, let me just go to my actual project folder here under my homeschool, Java homework, and the ISU. Okay, so there's the pictures, right? And then there's the ISU folder, right? So you're going to copy these pictures from D2L into this project folder, right? So I assume you guys are familiar with how to do that. Okay, so what else do we need? Well, we need some labels, don't we? So Q label is the question label, right label, and wrong label. Okay, so you can see those here. This is the Q label. What is Charmander's main attack, right? So that's the question label, and then I've got the right and the wrong labels down here to keep track of the score. Okay. So in addition to the controls, we're going to need a couple of other variables. Like here's a string variable for the answer, which is going to come up. So where does the answer come up? The answer comes up in a message box, right? So the answer is either going to be wrong, the answer was blah blah blah, or it's going to say you got it right. Okay, so this variable will change depending on whether I get it right or wrong. And then finally we need 2 ints to keep track of our score. So we need the right and the wrong. Okay. Okay, so from there we're going to go into our setup. And again, feel free to change the layout of this as you need to. I'll change the size of this later. For now I'm going to leave it at the 640 and 500. I think that's a different size than the template, but you can play around with that size to get what you want it to be. Alright, so now let's start building some of these controls. Okay, so first I'm going to do this global color scheme. Now remember we've seen this before, where you can change it from like the blue, purple default to something different. So this one is for green. That's how everything's green here on my screen, except for the wrong label. Okay, and again, you can use any color scheme you want to from 0 to 7, I think it is. So you can play around with that. So I'm going to go into a for loop, guys. And this is going to be to load these 5 images rather into this QImage array. Okay, so here's what that looks like. So QImage at location X equals load image, QImage files at X. Okay, because with every image you have to load the image. Okay, so the images are coming from this list of image files, and because these are both parallel arrays, I guess, if you will, I can use a for loop to just load them all up. Okay, so now I've got all 5 images ready to go. Now we're only going to see one at a time, but they're ready to go for when I need them. All right, so in addition to that, we're going to make our button. So nothing big there, a new G button. These are the coordinates I used, and the width and the height, and it's going to say submit, right? So that's for this button here, this green button down below. And then the radio buttons, okay? After the labels, of course. Okay, so this is my first label here, Q label equals make label, question goes here. Remember, this is the font size 24. I want to make note of something too, guys. In this particular template, because you're using this to sort of produce my mock trivia game, I modified, and you can go ahead and modify this again. The make label, you'll notice the default font has changed to Comic Sans MS. Okay, so I put that in down here, and of course you can change that to be any default font that you want to that works within a p-applet. Okay, so I also did that not with make label only, but also with make option. So when I use this make label method, I send in the X, Y, the width of it, the text, and the size of the font that gets used down here. Okay, but now Courier Sans NS is the default font. Okay, but you can change that to whatever you want to. I just felt it was a good font for a Pokemon trivia game. Anyway, so back here we go. So there's the make label for that. Also got to make the label for the right label. Okay, so it says right 0 to start with. And now the left label, or the wrong label, not left. I also want to override the global color scheme and make it just red. So there's an option for that as well, guys. So there's me making the wrong label, and this next line of code is set local color scheme to 4. So 4 is red. I'm only applying it to the wrong label because I want that label to be red, not green like everything else. So I can use the local color scheme as opposed to the global color scheme. Okay. So the only thing we got left to make now are the option buttons. Now because like these are an array, right, of 4 different G options, okay, but because they're going at different locations, I can't really use a for loop to make them. So I still have to make them one at a time, okay, but it looks like this. Okay, so options at location 0 equals, and I'm using the make option method that I wrote, X, Y, and then the text that I want to use. Okay, so that saves us from writing all of this code down here for each option button, right? Because normally you'd have to say new G option, then I'm setting opaque to true so that you can actually see like the green around each of these options, the green box. I'm putting the text in there, I'm setting the font, and then I'm returning this option as an option I can use. Okay, so that just saves us from having to write these 4 lines of code per option. Alright, so that's the first option. We're going to make the other ones the same way. Okay, so options 1, and it just says pick B for now, and 2, and then 3. Okay, so that fills up the options. Okay, and I've just got different locations for each and different text for each. All in that Comic Sans MS. I forget what font I use for these, font size rather. But you can see it down here. Actually, we can look it up. So I'm using, what, size 18 for the font for the options. Okay. Alright, so we're almost done, guys. The only thing we have to do now is add these 4 options to a new toggle group. Or, sorry, yeah, G toggle group called G option group. Okay, I mentioned that earlier. So we're going to make that first. So new G toggle group. Now this we can do in a for loop because now that we've got all 4 options made, we can travel through them all and just add them to the group all at once. Okay, so going from 0 to 4, G option group dot add control options X. Okay, so that adds all 4 of these Q options to the option group. Alright, so again, this code here is going to allow us to only pick one from these 4 options. Alright, so that's a lot for the first video. The only thing we have left to do, guys, is down in draw. Let's draw like the first image. Okay, so so the first image is going to be QImage 0. Okay, so if I go down to the draw method here, way down at the bottom, okay, I'm going to change the background to like a sort of a goofy yellow color, and again you can change that later. And I'm going to draw a QImage at location 0, so that's the very first image that is in the list, okay, which happens to be Charmander, I believe, right? Yeah, Charmander is the first image. All right, so that is it for the first video, guys. Let's just compile this, and the next videos after this will be a little quicker because I don't have to explain the entire program to you all over again. So that is for, let me just run this and make sure that this works properly. So this is ISU1 that I'm doing right now. Okay, and again, you're not going to have these different ISU folders, or files rather. You're all just going to work with one file all along. But I've got different ones because they're all at different stages of completion. So anyway, this is what I'm working on now. So I'm going to run this, and let's see what it looks like initially. All right, so there you go. Okay, so question goes here, pick A, B, C, D, submit, right, wrong. Okay, so obviously this isn't an actual question, but this is sort of placeholder text for when we do the questions, right? And right now the submit button doesn't work. All right, so in our next video, guys, we are actually going to load the real questions in, right? So the question A, B, C, D, and then our submit button will let us travel to the next question, to the next question, to the next question. Right now these don't work. Oh, they do work. What do you know? When we submit, nothing works. But in the next video, let me try that again. In the next video, when we hit submit, we'll go through each of the 5 questions, and so we can see them all loading up here one at a time. All right, so we'll see you back for part 2 of this exciting project.